A lot of activity for a sunset. Maybe all the birds and the frogs and all the animals know something we don't. They're sure stirred up tonight, though. I have to say it's nice to hear the birds, at least, and I guess the frogs, but the birds are peaceful. They're calming. But damn, those frogs are loud. Where are all the birds at? Come on, boys. Our machines rip through the peacefulness and the serenity of nature like a dull blade ripping through flesh. We seem to be, as humans, the only thing that's not in tune with the rest of creation. Why do you think that is? It is a curious thing to ponder. I wonder how much of creation ponders our effects on it. You know, some might say that that's kind of a pagan way of thinking. But for my Christian brothers and sisters, I mean, all of creation is groaning in the birth pains. It awaits the revealing of the sons of the Most High, because they represent the redemption of all of creation. Interesting word, redemption. Redeemed. Has a ring of freedom and liberty to it, doesn't it? But it's deeper than that. It has a longer lasting impact even. It has an ethereal nature to it. And then there's humanity and our machines. Isn't it interesting how different our creations are from creation itself? And how out of place they seem in it. Why do you think that is? You know, you don't see the rest of creation trying to emulate us. Maybe they know something that we don't know, or we've lost, or has been found by some, and many have yet to comprehend it. But in this world, ripping through that is always our machines. Our iron beasts. But still, creation goes on around it. Waiting. You know, humanity was called to subdue the earth, not destroy it. We were called to be good stewards of all of this. How are we doing? Not that great. There's a reason why everything we tend to design to live in is a box. Our buildings are boxes. Our goods, our produced products are shipped in boxes. And we drive around in boxes. And far too many of us think in boxes. See the world from inside dark boxes. We then project onto others the inner darkness of our boxes on the boxes of others. And try to put them into boxes that resemble our own. You know, a box has 6 sides. Everything that you're born into in a 3-dimensional world plus time space is, in a sense, a box. A temporary box. If you live only for the temporary box and nothing fills the darkness inside that box, and you die in that box, how deep do they bury you? in a box, 6 feet deep. Oh, but we love our boxes, don't we? So, you're born in a box with 6 sides. You live your life only for that box of 6 sides, and they bury you in a box with 6 sides, 6 feet deep. You have 5 senses plus your mind. And your mind is what makes sense of what your senses take in as information. If there's nothing inside you beyond those temporal senses and your temporal organ, your brain, to be able to perceive the world around you, you are locked inside a 6-sided dark box. And if that's all you have is your wisdom and your works in your own temporal flesh. And you wonder what the meaning of 666 is. Well, there you go. Is it any wonder that those that are given over to it create a world where that's how they rule over it and what they rule over it with? Their own wisdom and their own works from inside their dark boxes, where they project their pride, their fears, their avarice and hubris onto everybody else. And they amass more and more and more temporal things, more wealth, more power, and more influence to rule over all the rest of the boxes that buy into their lie. And you wonder why this world is in darkness, and why it is confused and in fear. Well, everybody's temporal box, their mortal coils, is governed by death. That's why they bury you 6 feet deep in a 6-sided box. And that should tell you something about living only for your mortal coils, your 5 senses, and your own perceptions. Apart from the light of God, which is the truth and love that brings about justice and mercy from humble and contrite hearts, and frees you from the tyranny of the chains of those fears and your pride. Oh, but we love our boxes, don't we? You know, when you go to any urban area, usually the largest green spaces, the largest open areas, the most park-like areas in a large urban area in this country are cemeteries. I call them the gardens of goodbye, because they're filled with 6-sided boxes that hold the remnants of all those that left their temporal mortal coils, their fleshy box behind. It's amazing. Sometimes the most peaceful places you can go to in an urban area is a graveyard. There's not a lot of people arguing over politics there. There's not a lot of blame or accusations or projection going on there. Although there tends to be a good bit of grief and sorrows there. Isn't it amazing that in this story, death entered into a garden, and in this life, we leave this world and are buried in a garden. A garden of goodbyes. The animals don't do that either. But I bet they do grieve. You can see that with dogs and cats and other animals who have lost their masters. They grieve over us. Isn't that interesting? I hate death. I hate sorrows. But I don't fear death. But I do hate goodbyes. I wrote a poem years ago sitting in the Hollywood Cemetery in Richmond. It's a famous cemetery. It's almost like visiting a medieval or Gothic ruins of a time gone by. There are presidents buried there, vice presidents. There's all kinds of wealthy folks. It goes all the way back to the 1700s. But you know, the interesting thing about that is the difference between the wealthy and the poor that are buried in Hollywood Cemetery is only the size of their monuments, not their final fate. All of them left it all behind and were buried in a six-sided box where the remnants of their six-sided box of immortal coils were interred. There's a lot of people that fear death because they have a lot to live for here. Some for good reasons and others for for bad ones. Some people will do absolutely anything in the world to avoid death, even if it means sacrificing the lives of others unjustly to try to prolong theirs. How ironic it must be for them when they leave this world in a blink of an eye and stand before God, whom they spent their entire mortal lives denying, while investing everything in everything that they left behind in the temporal world. Must be quite a shock. I doubt there's any arguing and politicking going on there. And there's one thing I can tell you there isn't, for sure. Blame. All know exactly what they chose, and all see exactly what they chose and the effects of their actions. From the moment they popped out of the womb to their last breath in the mortal coils which they leave behind. And they learn the hard way, many of them, that there was actually nothing in this world of temporality that didn't have a global effect on absolutely everything and everybody else. Either for good or for evil. But God doesn't judge with a balance like that. He judges based upon your heart. First, the intents of why you do things in the here and now as you stand before Him. Then, there are no fig leaves there either. That's why so many of us talk about grace. All of us are fallible. All of us make mistakes that affect others around us. Perhaps what most of us don't understand is that the things we do ripple around the world and have a global effect. It's an exponential amplification that occurs. And so, to those people that think that they're the center of the universe and live that way here, they wind up having a very rude awakening when they find out that nothing they did in the definitive temporary happened in a vacuum. Nothing they did, no matter how small they may have thought it was, didn't have a global effect that echoed long after they departed here. More is never enough to fill up a bottomless pit or an eternal hole inside you that can only be filled with the Spirit of God. Everything else is a deception and takes everything out of context. So what your mortal coils are, they are a beast driven by instinct and appetitive desires that have an infinite hunger and a temporary lifespan. Now think about that. If you live only for the temporary and for your mortal coils, what you are doing is you're handing yourself over to something that has an infinite appetite and a temporary lifespan. That means that nothing in the temporal world will ever feel, there's nothing here that will ever feel that exponentially growing hunger, thirst, desire for something eternal while focusing on that which is not. No matter how hard you try. No matter how much you amass here, no matter how much you consume here, no matter how much you pursue here, the temporal things, no matter what you build here, and no matter what kind of concepts and constructs you come up with to try to change that absolute reality, there is not enough temporary to fill up an infinite anything. But you're born and live and then die trying. Now, if that's the only thing you live for, you're a pitiful soul. Because you're deceived. But I watch the trucks go by trying to fill our emptiness with more temporal every day. I can feel it in my own. How do you think I know it? I'm not saying the things are bad. I'm saying it's the orientation of your heart towards them that matters. And if your heart is dark because the box of your life is dark, because all you live for is the external surfaces of things, that means all you can perceive in this world is temporal things. They seem to be something that'll make you happy, that'll satisfy your desire for something more. But it never works. You never see a moving truck at an interment ceremony at a garden of goodbye, otherwise known as a cemetery. The only product that's in a box that day is your flesh. So when I talk about that you've been made merchandise out of, and you've created systems that make merchandise out of everybody, let that be a warning to you not to live only for the temporary box. Because we never ship anything in a valuable box. We ship valuables in a box. What's most valuable about you is inside of you, not what is wrapped around it, being your mortal coils. Yet the world will tell you everything different. It tells you this is all there is. And even those of you that know that's not true, it'll try to lure you away to be entrapped and controlled and ruled by more temporal things. More temporal places and more temporal relationships. Now, out of those three, relationships are the closest thing to something that transcends the temporal. So if you're living only for your mortal coils, the impact you're having on those that don't have eternal consequences. That's why you need grace too. And if they didn't see their need for their own grace, they wouldn't be dispensing it. They wouldn't be dispensing it to you because they know you need it too. But some of you hate them for that. So the Bible talks about that we are treasures in earthen jars. It's another metaphor for your mortal coils. Even Jesus has talked about you are the clay and he's the potter. But when you get a box from Amazon, do you throw out the contents because you're so enamored with the box, and you keep the box and throw what was inside it away? Or do you open that box to see what's inside of it that you ordered? That's where the value is. That's what you invested in. Why don't you do that with people? After all, what's most important about all of us is not external, it's what's inside of us. But the world blinds people, blinds their minds and their perceptions to that fact, and cons them out of what's most important to them, which is the most valuable thing they have, and that's their souls. Because it essentially gets them to throw out what's valuable inside them after a life lived in the temporal, so that they can live only for the box, not what the box was designed to do, which was to deliver what was valuable. But that's what you do. But yet, if somebody were to send you a valuable gift, and the post office or UPS or whoever delivered it to your door, or your neighbors for that matter, and they took that valuable thing and threw it in the trash and kept the box, you would think them a nut job. You would think them crazy. Yet you do the same thing, some of you, to other people and to yourself, because you don't believe in anything bigger than your disposable box. And where is it disposed of? Well, in a cemetery, of course, in those gardens of goodbye. And it's delivered in a box, too. A box with 6 sides, buried 6 feet deep. What a curious world this is it not? Consider it. Think about it. Especially when you hear all the talk of death and fear. And think about that. Who knows? It might just change your life. And you might decide to live for something other than just the temporary. And find out that when you do, not only do you look forward to something that isn't temporary, but you get the temporary put into its correct context, and it becomes more important to you in a more authentic and real way than the shadow of it that you were heading towards would have been able to grant you.
Goodbyes. Element by Athealips. We so often spent our lives trying to recover that pale misty ghost of Eden. Try we do in such desperation to remember that beloved garden as its fading evades our mind's grasp. Many a soul hath been lost to the chasing of that fading glory. Here we do build kingdoms in sand, always telling ourselves this time will defy the high tide of its dark waves. Dark waves which seek to wash away all our truest hopes and dreams, replacing the precious with contorted counterfeits. Oh, how these finite shells of flesh deceive. In the noonday sun we chase after the shadows, hoping to soothe our dearest desires, God-given yet broken. This too is but building upon the sandy shores of a story sea. For try as we might, Shamat fashions iron fists of our fears, bringing down upon our illusions, crushing things that pretend. Those shadows cannot suffice. They are but the treacherous games of lust and fear. Oh, how they offer so much even as they chain us in never-enders. It is this which maketh animals of the civilized and demons out of our angels. Cast them not away, they whisper in our thoughts. In our weakest moments they demand servitude to their lostness. My beloved, the shadows shall never satisfy those truest desires, nor the good hungers which endow them to our souls. Just as the salt dark waters of the sea cannot quench thirst, only increase our empty wanting. How easily we are fools for those lukewarm stolen waters. Even still our innermost parts pant for our heavenly Father's living waters. Still the shadows' lies run their diabolical course. Yes, it is true, the weakness of flesh desires nothing of eternal substance. So thou we do endeavor in great energies to cajole ourselves into a phantom of belief. Even as we flee our heart's truest forms to once again chase after the wind only to be covered with dust and ash. How long shall we pursue those shadows of our truest selves? How long shall we run far from our hearts? Wherefore do the heart's desires take root and blossom in such dark importance ignored in the false light of the shadow's temptations? It cannot be found in gardens turned graveyards strewn across the lands of our thoughts. No. It cannot take root it in the false portents of yesterdays still haunting our present vision. My beloved, fertile ground for the seeds of truest desire can only be planted in the good soils of love's acceptance, forgiveness and our Heavenly Father's grace. This truth no mortal could quake at the thought of it. For our flesh is bound to temporary, which reels back from that which is fashioned in eternal glories. So here I sit once again in the garden of goodbyes, surrounded by the monuments of those long departed for the peaceful eternal shores in timeless. These monuments mere markers to lives whose absence points us still beyond our frail mortality to the forever lands, which our true hearts and their truest desires were fashioned to lead us towards. Ponder this, my dear one. Why might our cities so grand in their banality all have gardens built for goodbyes? And are they planted with seeds of lost Eden and watered with a sea of tears? For in this valley of decision, where the shadows dance to temptation and death in all that heaven's hope doth not survive, we travel a path so many left even through the garden of goodbyes. Nothing of value lasting beyond momentary breaths shall ever quench the search for more, but thy perfect love which dawns in hearts alive, exposing our never-enders. So let these words sink in thy heart, and find a place to take root. For if they do, you will awake from the night to see your truest desires bloom. Let not the shadows nor their lies nor their temptations steal from you. For my beloved, we are so much more than mortal coils locked in fleshy tombs. As we travel through these shadowlands populated with counterfeit hues, always remember who you are and that my love shall forever be for you. Not distance nor darkness can eclipse our hearts when they are in bloom. For we are trees who bear fruit in their time, defying the days and nights so cruel. Let not the cares of the kingdoms of sand keep chains upon thy soul, nor accept the shadows of real from their pale lusty tombs. Do not turn back from the less travelled path to weep for yesteryear. Look forward and let your heart breathe the air of truth and love. I shall not spin fables to deceive thee, for the journey through fear is hard. Yet know that its yoke is light compared to the shadow's weighty loads. You see, my dear, I say these things not to push you away. Oh no, I could not think of such travail, still I yearn for you to stay. However, upon this road further up and farther in towards our Father's keep, I know I cannot be a stumbling block, only a man who believes. My prayers are for those truest desires in thee to bloom in that holiest of soils. This my reason for asking of God remove all of the shadows, stones and all their chains from you. I commit you to the hands of our Father even as my flesh trembles and protests, trusting that one day even in this place I might see thy smile on you. Take thy hand into mine, look into your eyes, and know your heart has broken through the surface of flesh, the realm in which thy fears and chains have long held you fast. Though I can see them losing their strength, knowing thy heart is near breakthrough, I long for the day thy heart is unimpeded, and the shadows you have said your goodbyes to. For on that day your love will bloom, allowing me to love you. Knowest thou, my dear, you have not been alone in this valley of shadows, where the falsity of fig leaves are fashioned by fears? Oh no, for it hath been a millstone around my neck since my youth as well, nearly drowning me in dark tears. 'Tis a lie to play pretend and say it not to thee, that which 'tis true you about those shadows of me. Such a bitter travail to turn from temptation's desire for flight away to stand firm. Even face to face with those yesterdays to vanquish them from my mind and soul so diseased. Do not think in this time where the darkness prowls, good work evades not my own soul. Like you, I have been long in phantom chains I had grown intimately used to. 'Tis true. Beloved, I have been a sojourner upon this narrow path homeward many a year now. Seasons charge and retreat in their great circles, wearing away the old man even as the new man grows stronger within. Those shadows still knock on the gates of my soul, seeking entry into places they no longer have space in. Of this I do sing, I am made anew, freed from the tyrant of sin. Hear thee these truths. We are as living stones surrounded by the washing away of the sand. Living stones fit together without mortal hands. Truest of pedigree sprang forth from heaven's fount, our divine Father offspring led by his love homeward bound. Nothing on earth nor skies above can taketh away his eternal love. Nor temporal kingdoms fashioned in sand, nor fallen phantoms who lure with never-enders, shall erase our names from the Lamb's living book of love. Nor tempest nor distance, no, not these, shall steal us away from the life he hath breathed into you and me. Not past nor present nor future to come can blot out what God's Son hath already done. For our history was written before history begun, the victory which comes long since won. So with these last words, until next we shall meet, know thee of gratitude mine heart proclaims. 'Tis true, even if thy thoughts say it but mirage. It was not. My love cannot fade. Let not artemisia take root it in the remembering of me. May it be, rather, that the seeds of something more beautiful be conceived. Conceived in my beloved's heart once received. Even if for the briefest of our momentary regret doth not come near the tent of my soul. Thy grace has blessed my heart, setting it abloom in defiance to the callousness once shrouding. For this I am grateful amidst the melancholy, as I journey onward to that holy mountain. So here I sit in this garden of goodbyes, knowing these words are hellos to new chapters of life. Life filled with truth and eternal love's light. Thusly I shall not bid thee goodbye. Only my prayers and love until we find our hearts reaching out through the noise, the lies, and the shadow smoke, free at last to share our smiles and our greatest hope.
Why do we hold on to our yesterdays when man is worn out us today? Why do we hold on to our yesterdays when that
delicate balance between reality, the world of light, and the other, darker world below the threshold of consciousness.